and happy hump day. Today, what I wanted to talk about is something that's just been kind of going on in my mind over the past 2 days. Just, I've been in meetings. I've been in recovery support meetings. I've been in sobriety meetings, recovery support meaning like stroke support, vestibular disorder support, all of these various fellowships that I'm a part of. And there's like this air in the room. Like there's just this feeling of like there's a black cloud over everybody, like there's a lot of discontent is what it feels like. It feels like a lot of people have a lot of hard stuff going on. And I don't, which is interesting, I'm an alcoholic in recovery. I'm a stroke survivor. I have a permanent disability. I have chronic pain, meaning I have a permanent headache. And I've got a lot of stuff working against me, but I just don't feel that black cloud. But when I interact with other people, they are just exuding this feeling like that things are bad and they're never going to be better, and it's like feeling of hopelessness. Like that's what I'm feeling from other people. And I am it's not lost on me that there's a lot of controversy in the world over politics, over religion, over identity, all of these things. And I know that that's impacting a lot of people, some more than others that like allow that just to like consume them really. But what it was making me think of was step six. It was making me think of my own character defects. It was making me think about, I had run across a quote this morning, and it was something like from one of my past podcasts. I don't know when, I don't know what year, but it was about closure. And it was about how closure does not have to be arrived at through a conversation with somebody else. Like, I don't have to have a conversation with somebody else in order to rectify a problem and have closure. That closure is a conversation that we have with ourselves. And so I just started thinking about what inhibits me from having that conversation with myself. And it's willingness. It's willingness. And that's why I was thinking about step six. Step six is for those of you who are not in sobriety or are not an alcoholic and are not familiar with the 12-step program that I follow for my sobriety and my stroke recovery. Step six is we're entirely ready. I need to slow down. I need my brain to slow down and allow my mouth to catch up. So, step six is willingness. It's about being entirely ready to have God remove all of our defects of character. And that step six for me then is all about willingness. It screams willingness. It's being ready to make a decision, but needing to repeatedly make that decision consistently. Um, it's not like waiting for a feeling to come in order for me to make the decision each time. Does that make sense? Like, I am making a decision, an all-encompassing decision to repeat and consistently make the same decision. It seems like a play on words, but um it it removes our feelings from the equation. So step 6 is like I'm entering into this new phase, this new way of living. That is, I'm not going to wait for a circumstance that I'm in and the feelings that are a product of that circumstance to make a decision on how I'm going to behave. Um, I don't have to fully understand what's going on in any situation, any circumstance, for me to be able to make a decision to do the next right thing. Um, it doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean that every circumstance that I'm in, I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to do the next right thing. And this is what it is. Like, it's, it, it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. But as we do it, as we make that repeated, consistent decision to live this way, it becomes easier. And we gain that wisdom in order to be able to, okay, in this situation, I did something like this before, and this is how I handled it, and this is what happened. And the world didn't blow up, I was able to walk through it. So I'm going to do the same thing again. That's the wisdom. So just like the earlier steps in steps 2 and 3, where I'm gaining this understanding or cultivating an understanding of my higher power, um, this step is also pulling in that concept of God. And it's saying, okay, now that I've gone through the previous steps and I understand what trends are happening in my life that impact my relationships, now that I understand that and I can see a little bit of like what my role has been and how that trended across relationships, now that I see that, I want you, my higher power, to just take that away. I don't understand that. Okay, I'm just being completely honest. I don't understand that. But what I have understood is how to live it. And what I thought in the beginning was when I got to step 6 was, okay, I'm just going to now they must they, meaning the powers that be that created, I guess Bill Wilson, believed that if I've gotten to step 6, I must have a concrete understanding of my higher power. And I've started calling it God and him, God. And And that's it. So now I'm just gonna like beckon him here and he's gonna remove everything. He's gonna suck all the bad stuff out of me. And then I'm gonna move on and everything's gonna be positive. Well, wait, there's a problem. I don't fully understand my God yet. So how do I get him to remove my character defects? Like I didn't get that. Well, what I found is that when I keep being willing to make that repeated, consistent decision, the change starts to happen. and it's almost unnoticeable. So what's the action in being entirely ready? Well, this is what I have found. The action is stop defending my defects. Now that I know what they are, now that I know what my trends are in my behavioral trends, now I can pinpoint when it happens. And that has to happen, right? In a repeated and consistent way. I get into those situations, those circumstances, and I see one of my defects like rear its ugly head, and I start defending myself. Well, now I know from my experience so far, oh, wait a minute, there's a defect. Stop defending it. And it kind of, for me, started to make me get a little quieter, a little more self-reflective. I started pausing a little more. And I started to be able to see what needs to change inside of me instead of what do they need to change. Because if I'm defending my defects, then the person that's making them come out of me, the person that's making them want to start scratching and biting at that person, um, I want to change them. If I'm defending my defects, I want to change them. But if I now have this self-awareness of what my defects are, then I can start seeing what needs to change within me. And I can stop postponing it because I'm not making excuses anymore. I can start asking myself, am I willing to let this go? What's the healthier way? I can be right smack in the middle of a conversation with somebody, see a defect coming out, and say, wait a minute, wait a minute, there it is. I don't want to do this. I want to let this piece of me go and find a healthier way to handle this. So my instincts are what's causing that character defect to come out in me. Those nasty defects. Oh, sorry, those nasty, nasty defects too, but those nasty instincts that were born from my experiences in my life. And when those instincts, as the book says, as the literature, my sobriety program says, when those instincts exceed their purpose, then I start having the character defects. And that's when the instinct that's protecting my fears becomes trying to control people, places, and things. Um, when my when my instincts start to protect my confidence, you know, then it becomes like ego. It becomes, what did I call it? False pride, which is what I talked about, I guess, on Monday. Um, when my instincts are protecting my anger, then that anger turns into resentment. And I'm postponing my change, and that's why the resentment just takes a strong hold and just sits and starts to chip away at a relationship. Um, when my instincts protect my desires, my wants, what I call my wanter, it turns into selfishness. So our instincts aren't wrong, but our response to them can be unhealthy. And so my job in step 6 is to notice them in real time, to notice them. And patience is super important in step 6 because if I'm going to be depending on a repeated, consistent decision every day, multiple times a day, then I really need to lean into the phrase progress, not perfection. And recovery, just like stroke recovery, is very, very patient improvement. I have to keep practicing. I have to keep making mistakes in order to practice, in order to learn from them. I have to become willing time and time again. And then growth is really measured by that trajectory of how I'm behaving, by the direction of where I'm going, not the speed at which I get there. Because I'm not trying to get anywhere, really, with this this way of living. It has no end. It has no finish line. In stroke recovery, as I mentioned, like I like to draw parallels between my sobriety and my stroke recovery because um, stroke recovery doesn't have a finish line either, so that reinforced that lesson. Um, Although it looks very different, alcoholism and stroke recovery, there's still that feeling of wanting. And that is born from my instincts, from my experiences. And that wanting, if I'm not self-aware, it can turn into wanting to control everything. And there's nothing worse than having limitations and trying to control people, places, and things beyond my limitation, like beyond my physical limitations. So I already, in my alcoholism and in sobriety, even try to control people, places, and things. And that's beyond my abilities. I can't do that. But when my physical deficits come into play and my chronic pain, sometimes that makes me want to try even harder to control people, places, and things. Sometimes I want to control the symptoms and I can't. I can't control my disability. All I can do is adapt. Um, Having the instinct to be super productive and weighing my worth against that is can be a character defect. It seems like, my career was really dependent on that incredible drive that I have that I still have. But having that be equivalent to my self-worth, having the outcome of that drive, that productivity, um, measure my self-worth is a character defect. So, am I resisting reality? Am I in denial? Do I believe that I have to do everything myself? Do I have to be independent? Or can I be dependent on others? Can I be dependent on my higher power? So back to step 6, can I be dependent on my understanding of God, my concept of God? Can I be dependent on that enough to be able to let go? So you see it comes full circle That's where the freedom comes from. That's where the ability to, how did I word it earlier? Um, that's where choosing the healthier way, the repeated, consistent decision, that's where choosing the healthier way, um, it exists, is for me from being able to be dependent on this higher power thing. And I have to. It's not, for me, it's not a question, and it's taken me time to get to this point. As those of you who are longtime listeners know, I've struggled with being able to say, yes, I believe. I believe in God. And I've realized over the past couple months that, and I've shared about it in the podcast, it's not a question of whether I believe or not. I have to believe. I have to believe to maintain hope in stroke recovery. I have to. There's no other way. There's no other way. And I have, through my experience in sobriety, seen for a fact that being willing to believe, there's the willingness again, being willing has saved my life. I don't drink because I am willing to believe in a higher power, period. I know that for a fact now. It has taken me, what, 10 years? But I'm here, you know? Progress, not perfection. It doesn't, there's no finish line, right? It goes back to that. So recovery requires me to have the willingness to depend on something outside of myself, the willingness to ask for help in stroke recovery, the willingness to rest and adapt and trust. And then I get to keep practicing that every day. Repeated, consistent decisions. And that replaces my self-will. So that is replacing my character defects. I'm not just getting rid of my character defects. I'm not saying, oh, I'm in a conversation. Oh, they're pissing me off. They're pissing me off. I'm getting ready to explode. Don't do it. Don't explode. I'm not just being like, okay, you got to resist every instinct that you have to not punch this person in the face. I'm not a physical fighter, but we're just giving an example. Oh dear. We're gonna keep going. My sister is calling, and it's her birthday. And I just told her I'd call her back. That's terrible. I'm in the middle of a an episode. What can I do? I'll call her back. I feel terrible, but we're almost done. So, um, practice, practice, practice. So this repeated consistent decisions replaces self-will. It replaces my defects of character. I'm not just getting rid of them. I'm replacing it with something else. Um, so the most obvious example of this for me is I that I was just talking about is I'm replacing fear with faith. That's the perfect example. If I don't have faith, I'm scared to death. I am. I'm terrified. Okay? So that's what I've done in my life. So some of those other examples that I gave earlier, ego, I'm replacing ego with humility. Resentment. I'm replacing resentment with forgiveness, whether it's forgiveness of the other person or it's forgiveness of myself. And that comes into play a lot for me. And it's often like going back to the closure and that internal shift. I don't necessarily have to have a conversation with the person that I'm resentful towards in order to let it go, in order to have closure. I can have a conversation with myself based on the steps of my program. And that's when I can replace the resentment with forgiveness and have closure. A true closure, not just like you shouldn't be mad anymore. It's like true closure, like this is not serving me. So I'm choosing to let it go and replace it with understanding, I think, to understand them to be understood, that kind of thing. Um, Replacing the need to control people, places, and things with trust. With, I think that's runs parallel with faith. So being entirely ready, um, is really acting my way into acting my way into the action. No, acting my way into the feeling, I think. Step 6 teaches me that willingness is what actually changes me. It's willingness is what has transformed my life. I did not see that for the longest time. Really, it's become so powerful of an idea in my head over the past year, probably. Um, and only in the past few months having that understanding that I don't have to know how my higher power is working in my life. I just have to be willing to trust that he is. Um, so simply becoming willing to let go seems to remove what's standing between me and living better, living well, just being willing to let go. That's when I can choose better. So that's what I have. Now I got to call my sissy and wish her a happy birthday. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time.